I love the Like a Dragon series. I first discovered the Yakuza series when my friend Spencer mentioned it to me. I remember telling him how much I loved Sleeping Dogs, which prompted him to ask if I ever heard of the Yakuza series. After I said no, he recommended I start with Yakuza 0. It is difficult to describe the feeling of starting the story. I was immediately thrusted into a new world and a fresh experience. Kiryu at the start seemed like a punk, and the concept of literally investing into him to unlock new abilities was a unique element. The combat and techniques I acquired were unlike anything I had experienced before. I remember foolishly entering the Tojo clan hideout without buying any healing items, which led to many restarts. However, the struggle was a blessing, as it forced me to master the brawler style, since I had not yet figured out how to switch to the rush style. To say I was a novice would be an understatement. Regardless of the rocky start, the game was amazing, and the subsequent twist, the introduction of a second protagonist, Majima, made the experience even better.
Yo. Kiryu-chan!
To say he is my favorite character would not do him justice. In the following months, playing through the series from Yakuza 0 to 6 was quite the experience. I was fully immersed in the ever-growing story and world building of a single map, Kamurocho, based on Kabukicho in Japan. As the games progressed, we saw Kiryu endure multiple tragedies and challenges that would break a weaker psyche. The first major shift, or what I felt was Kiryu taking a backseat story-wise, was Yakuza 4. This game felt fresh with the introduction of Akiyama and Saejima, before finally returning to Kiryu, who in my opinion felt almost like a last-minute inclusion in the narrative. When it was time to start Yakuza 5, the longest game in the series, the narrative felt like it was getting darker. By the end, it seemed as though rggstudio wanted to end Kiryu's story by killing him off, allowing him to finally avoid the life that kept dragging him back time and time again. When I started Yakuza 6, I wasn't sure where the narrative was heading, but as the story progressed, it just felt like they were leaning into the more ridiculous aspects. Although I was aware it was fiction, the twist at the end was, in my opinion, okay. The ending broke me. It was surprisingly depressing and felt like the true end for a character. But that's what I would have said if the studio had kept it that way. As the studio continued developing the series, they slowly began to rebrand it from the Yakuza series to the Like a Dragon series. While Like a Dragon was the original name in Japanese, Yakuza was likely more appealing to the Western market. The first game released under this new title was the 7th entry in the series, 2020's Like a Dragon. I remember hearing that this game would be RPG based and that the idea supposedly originated from an April Fool's joke. Regardless of its origin, I think the genre fits well with the game's wide variety of RPG elements. A switch like this felt inevitable. I was pleasantly surprised by how much I liked the change and was honestly waiting to get this game due to the hype surrounding it, and if you know me, I don't fall for the hype. Upon starting the game, I found Ichiban quite endearing, possessing a sort of blissful ignorance. While the game is heavily inspired by Dragon Quest, I won't dwell on that connection. The opening immediately drew me in with the fresh cast of characters, and I found it fascinating how Ichiban's story runs parallel to Kiryu's timeline. I've always appreciated how the series weaves these multiple narratives together. What truly surprised me, and likely most of the community, was Ichiban's perspective of the world as an RPG. But what if that lens is more than just a quirky trait? What if Ichiban Kasuga isn't actually a hero, but a man experiencing a total psychological break? While we enjoy his vibrant Dragon Quest delusions, they may actually be a desperate defense mechanism against a life of systemic ruin. Today we're stripping back the fantasies to reveal the gritty, tragic reality of his escapism. To understand the man behind the myth, we must first examine the context of our protagonist. The story begins with the 24-year-old Ichiban working as a low-level debt collector for the Arakawa family. While he possesses the strength to easily dispatch foes, he often gives them a sporting chance to fight back, a quirk that would likely baffle any real-world opponent. His journey in the tragedy truly begins when, after failing to collect a debt, he is blamed for his incompetence and nearly forced to perform yubitsume, the Yakuza tradition of severing a pinky finger to atone for failure. Outside of his Yakuza duties, Ichiban cares for Masumi Arakawa's son, Masato, assisting the wheelchair-bound young man with his daily life. During a night out to celebrate Masato's girlfriend's birthday, the two overhear her talking to her actual lover, revealing that she has only been using Masato for his wealth. Heartbroken, Masato storms off, leaving Ichiban to settle the bill. As Masato wanders the streets, the effects of an experimental drug that had allowed him to walk began to wear off. In his weakened state, he is berated by a member of a rival family. Overwhelmed by the knight's betrayals, Masato pulls a gun and kills the man. The following day, Arakawa summons Ichiban and asks him to take the fall. Arakawa lies, claiming the family captain, Joe Shawashiro, committed the murder, though the player is aware of the truth. Out of fierce loyalty, Ichiban accepts the blame, resulting in a 15-year prison sentence that is extended by 3 additional years after he defends his family's honor in a prison brawl. 18 years, almost 2 decades, in prison for a crime he did not commit, is an incomprehensible loss. Upon his release, Ichiban attempts to find his patriarch, but is informed that Yakuza are not publicly visible as they once were. He meets Adachi, a police officer who suspects Ichiban's story is a lie, tied to a larger conspiracy, and wants to investigate. As the story progresses, Ichiban repeatedly views the world as a massive RPG inspired by Dragon Quest. He sees his opponents in combat as wild caricatures, almost like enemies in a video game. While the game presents these as delusions that the rest of the party cannot perceive, it is plausible that losing so many years behind bars and being violently thrown back into a radically changed world triggered a mental break, causing him to cope with his new reality through the fantasy. This has led to many players to suggest Ichiban may exhibit symptoms of schizophrenia, which is medically defined as a chronic, severe mental disorder marked by psychosis, delusions, hallucinations, and disorganized thinking. But what if those delusions are his way of coping with his reality? If you consider it, he's lost years of his life and is thrust back into a modern society that transitioned from pagers to smartphones. I've always found the aspect of recruiting new friends into his party fascinating. I believe it's his way of showing his camaraderie. His drink links and bar chats are his method of truly getting to know people, and we, the players, see the world through his eyes. For instance, he recruits Adachi late into the tutorial, because up until that point, he didn't fully trust him. His subsequent recruitment of Adachi was his way of showing that he'd gained enough trust to know Adachi had his back in a fight. This pattern doesn't just happen once, but continues with the other ever-growing cast of friends. While his party can only consist of 4 playable characters, we've seen all the characters appear during cutscenes, so realistically, he's walking around with 6 other people every day, modernizing the hero's party aspect. When Ichiban is awakened in the homeless camp, he is asked to leave because the homeless have an arrangement with the Yakuza, who use the area to dispose of corpses or people unlucky enough to be at the end of a barrel. During his time at the camp, he meets the leader and another man, Namba, who subsequently joins his party. We find out he was an ex-nurse who was fired after taking the blame for a junior who was stealing medicine to sell on the black market. Throughout the events of the story, we discover Namba was searching for his brother, who disappeared after getting too close to uncovering the truth of a money laundering scheme. The Gomi-Jewel, a faction made up of the Korean mafia, were the ones to make him disappear, by putting him into hiding. When Namba betrays Ichiban and the party, he admits he only used them to get closer to the truth he wanted. Ichiban, understanding Namba had his reasons, searches for him regardless of the betrayal. This aspect was always interesting to me. Ichiban, a man who always saw the good in people and offered an outstretched hand in a world full of violence and corruption, was a light that not many people had. Ichiban forgives Namba, accepts him for who he is, and tells him he'll help him. This scene echoed how Kiryu was betrayed by people, but would also try to understand them through fists and unwavering grit. Ichiban approached people differently, almost on a shonen level, a talk no jutsu perhaps, where he focused on seeing the good in people. In his previous life, Ichiban was seen as a loser, someone misguided who didn't understand how the real world worked. Through this game, we start at rock bottom. While not all of us can say that we've been homeless, many of us can relate to being broke and needing to start from scratch. The beauty of this game is how it gives hope to Ichiban and the player, that we can rise again regardless of age. At the start, we don't have many resources and have to scavenge with the methods that the homeless teach us. I always find these games interesting from how we progress from fighting vagrants to thugs and eventually the governor of Tokyo. The homeless in this game are seen as the bottom of the food chain and are used by criminal organizations, not just in this game, but in most of them. I found it infectious how positive Ichiban remains, even in his circumstances. When we reach the climax of the story, Ichiban starts to get frustrated with the revelation that his pseudo-brother, Masato Arakawa, who later became Ryu Aoki, was the one behind the murder that sent him to prison all those years ago. Ichiban's reaction wasn't one of immediate anger, but rather that of a man who had accepted his reality, recognizing this was no longer the wildest thing he had seen as the game progressed. The twist that Masumi Arakawa, who dies, is actually Ichiban's biological father, and Joe Shawashiro is Masato Arakawa's biological father. Caught me completely off guard, and I was just as shocked as Ichiban. The scene where Ichiban is about to kill a man from the Omi Alliance shows the cracks in his positive facade. One might call them cracks in the hero's armor. Kiryu is the one who stops him. I always found this sequence uncomfortable to watch. A character I grew to appreciate was losing his cool and about to commit a terrible mistake, only to be stopped by a man who has seen countless others go down this path. It's notable that Ichiban's Japanese voice actor is the same as Nishiki's, Kiryu's sworn brother who ultimately followed the destructive path. In a way, Kiryu's intervention echoes what he would have done for Nishiki all those years ago. I must also add that Kaiji Tang, the English voice actor for Ichiban, absolutely sold this role. He did an amazing job highlighting the character's emotions, providing a youthful depiction for Ichiban despite the character being 40 plus at this point in the game. This scene I think demonstrates that it's okay to be vulnerable and not have all the answers. The following scene where Ichiban's party faces off against Kiryu is where the illusion is most prevalent.
奴の次の一手が何かって情報どっちを知りたいんだ
そりゃここに来た目的ってのは一つだよ
わかりゃいいだが俺からも条件がある
なんだと
お前とお前の仲間たちがその情報を渡すに値する相手かどうか確かめさせてもらいてあいにく俺は拳で人を見るタイプなんでな
そういうのいつもは嫌いじゃねえんだけどよやめとかねえか情報だけ教えてもらえねえか
なぜだ
ここんとこ俺の周りで大事な人間が立て続けに死んでよどうやらく気が立ってんだ今の俺は手加減する自信がねえあんたやりかねねえよ
そりゃちょうどいいな。
んだと？ふざけやがって！吐いた面飲むんじゃねえぞ
お前の欲しがっている宝はこの奥にある。宝の番人は俺だ。手にしたきゃその番人を倒して前に進め。やってやるよ死ぬ気で来い。
In the chapter where Kiryu enters the story to provide information on Ryu Aoki and Kume, he once again stops Ichiban from going down a path he can't turn back from. Frustrated by the preceding events, Ichiban threatens Kiryu, declaring he doesn't know what he'll do when he's angry. Aside from being one of the hardest battles if you're not ready, the fight was highly symbolic of passing the torch and differentiating their respective approaches. Kiryu historically faced multiple opponents alone, whereas Ichiban needed his friends to support him, a clear contrast between the old and new heroes. As the battle ends, Ichiban imagines Kiryu as a dragon of Dojima per se, and himself as the hero in armor facing it. In reality, the fight ended quickly, despite the grueling experience we, the player, went through. I know I've only briefly touched on the game's plot, but I believe it needs to be experienced firsthand. My retelling of the event and key plot points simply don't do it justice. There are countless aspects of this game and the other mainline titles that I could gush about, particularly the numerous sub-stories that flesh out Ichiban's character and illustrate how he navigates various scenarios. One of my personal favorites is the sub-story, Forget Me Not.
春日一番さんですよね。
え？ああ、確かにそうだが。
あ、申し遅れました。私、遠野楓って言います。やっと 会うことができた。
楓ちゃんだっけ？悪いんだけど、俺ら前に会ったことあった？
In it, Ichiban spends time on a pseudo date with a woman who claims he saved her when she was younger. When thugs inevitably intervene, they continue the date after the brawl.
いや、だがそんな急に言われても。マジか。
慌てすぎですよ。ねえ、春日さん。私の分もこれからずっと長生きしてくださいね。
え？
ちょっとあんた。
ん？
夜に何一人で騒いでいるんだ？
ああ、すんません。でも別に一人ってわけじゃ。あれ？
酔っているのか？それなら一緒に交番まで。
いや、悪いな、おまわりさん。大丈夫だ。
そうか？とにかく早めに家に帰るんだよ。
ああ。またいつか会えるよな。
Only for Kasuga to discover the woman was not real. She was merely a figment from his past, who wanted to thank him one last time, powerfully demonstrating the impact he has made, even if you can't remember the details. On a side note, the series incorporates many supernatural elements, but that's a topic for another day. So I pose the question, can Ichiban Kasuga's escapist journey inspire our own self-improvement? I believe it can. Ichiban has inspired me to remain optimistic regardless of my situation, and to always look for the brighter side of things. In the past, I have struggled to fully trust others due to negative experiences, but playing this game helped me realize that everyone has their own reasons for their actions. It taught me that while I strive for positivity, it is okay to have moments of negativity. Most importantly, it helped me understand that asking for help is a strength, and that shouldering everything alone is not a healthy way to cope. Ichiban's journey has motivated me to try new things, meet new people, and shift my focus from dwelling on the past to looking forward to the future. Even when life isn't perfect, I'm now determined to make the most of it. Thank you, mi gente. Remember to watch more movies and anime, play more video games, and enjoy life. Fiction is often reality. Peace.